he keeps us tuned in, and he's got all the inside information. But now I want to get to know the man and what makes him tick. So let's go to the Barb's Harley-Davidson Sports Hotline and welcome into the locker room a very special guest, an award-winning journalist from ESPN, Sal Paolantonio. What's up, Sal?
Hey, Billy. How you doing this Saturday morning? Great Saturday for Dallas week. It's fantastic. Can't wait for tomorrow night's game at Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah, there's a little chill in the air, too, Sal, so it's football weather.
Oh, yeah, it's perfect.
So, Sal, before we get started here, you and I have a couple mutual friends that wanted me to say hello. One is Lou Capelli. He wanted me to tell you, and also Johanna from the headquarters hair salon in Haddon Township.
Oh, my gosh, that is a name from the past, a blast from the past. Joanna used to cut my hair and my family's hair for years and years because all my daughters went to Haddon Township High School, graduated from Haddon Township High School, and we lived in Haddon Township, I want to say 20 years, 19, 20 years. So, yeah. And, of course, Lou Capelli, good friend, obviously a great public servant, one of the greatest guys in the history of South Jersey. So, shout out to both of them for sure.
Now, Sal, I'm in Collingswood. I grew up in Collingswood, graduated class in 1980. Louis Capelli and I grew up, we're childhood friends. So, growing up here in Collingswood, Sal, I feel like, I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. The Di Marias, the Capellis, the Manzos, the Gian Domenicos. I was like Henry Hill because my mom's Italian, my dad was German, hence the last name Schweim. But, Sal, when you were growing up, did you have plastic slip coverings over your mom's furniture?
Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Well, my mom was one of 17 kids. So I had a lot of aunts and uncles, and we would go to their house all the time. And God forbid you got anything on the couch when you were eating, watching TV.
So, Sal, tell us a little bit about your childhood. I know you grew up in New York, and you're a baseball fan, but tell us a little bit about what was a Sunday like at the Sal Paolantonio house?
Well, my dad, Vito, he was the first one, even though he was the youngest, and my mom was the second youngest in her household. They were the first ones to move out of Queens and Brooklyn and move to Long Island. So everybody in the family would come out to the so-called Vito Paolantonio estate, and it really wasn't much of an estate. It was one of those twin houses that had a big backyard and a nice front yard on a very quiet street. And of course, that was like a foreign country to the Italians that all grew up in East New York and Brooklyn and Queens. So they would all come out, and my mom would make a big pot of sauce, of course, and we would have ravioli and lasagna. And it would happen every Sunday. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. We would all have a big meal. I mean, literally, there would be like 20, 30 people in my house every Sunday. And the biggest thing we did was we would make sure that it was the second half of the second game of football before we ate anything. So you'd have a little antipasto, some bread, a couple of meatball sandwiches, and then the meal wouldn't come until the halftime of the second game that was on television, because you only really had two games. You had the 1 o'clock game and the 4 o'clock game. And we watched football together. That's what we did. We watched football together. And, of course, because Vince Lombardi, Italian-American, was so successful, Vince Lombardi was a huge, huge, huge part of my life growing up. My dad was a big DiMaggio and Lombardi fan. And, growing up, I was taught to be a Green Bay Packers fan because, Wellington Mara would not make Vince Lombardi the head coach of the Giants in 1959. And he was quoted as saying in the New York Times that New York was not ready for an Italian-American head coach of its football team. So Lombardi left and went to Green Bay, and that stuck with my family. And we became Packers fans until Joe Namath showed up, and then I became a Jet fan.
Yeah, wow, yeah. And I've had Joe on my show. I had Joe Namath on my show a couple years back, and it was really cool to talk to him. Sal, first of all, I don't know if a lot of people know, but you served in the Navy. You were a surface warfare officer. You were a lieutenant. You're a commissioned officer, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your service. And so you tell us a little history about how you got into the Navy.
Billy, first of all, it was an honor to serve. I got my master's degree out of NYU and then went into the service out of respect to my father, because my father was 4F'd because he had cataracts at birth. He had very, very bad eyesight. Wore glasses from age 4 years old to 5 years old. And all of his brothers served in the Navy or the Marines. And all my mother's brothers served in the Army or the Marines in World War II and Korea. So my dad was the only one who was denied the opportunity to serve. So my Uncle Tony, who was my godfather, who was a submarine commander in World War II, implored me to join the Navy, and I did. I wanted to join, and that's how I went in. I went to OCS, was a 16-week wonder in Newport, Rhode Island, was a commissioned officer, and spent 5 years as a surface warfare officer on a number of ships in the 6th Fleet. And then decided to get out because I really wanted to have kids, and I saw what the family separations were like for people in the military. So I did get honorably discharged and began my newspaper career at the Albany Times-Union in 1983.
We're talking with Sal Paolantonio, award-winning ESPN journalist. And Sal, I know you did get a little political here. I'll just let you know my father served in the Navy. He was at Pearl Harbor right before or after it was attacked, and he's now resting at Arlington National Cemetery. So real proud of Pops. But talk a little bit about you got into politics.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very proud of my father. Sal, you got into politics. You wrote a book about Frank Rizzo. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Well, when I left the Albany Times-Union, first of all, at the Albany Times-Union, I covered the famine in East Africa on special assignment and got a number of job offers after that in 1985. And one of them was for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I was never really a sports writer. I wasn't that much interested in being a sports writer. I was very interested in politics. I had covered Mayor Whalen in City Hall in Albany. I covered the first Cuomo administration in Albany. And I covered Camden County politics for years. In fact, that's how I met Lou Capelli and everybody associated with Lou Capelli, Rob Andrews, of course, the great Jim Beach, who's now a state senator, and others who have become lifelong friends of mine. Lou Greenwald, the late great mayor of Cherry Hill, Maria Greenwald, lots of different people. So I covered Camden County politics, then New Jersey politics, and then I moved across the river. The Inquirer moved me across the river in 1990 to cover the mayor's race. And Rizzo ran for the 5th time, as you know, and then died in the middle of the campaign. And there were 2 books written about Rizzo, but both of them were sort of liberal polemics, for lack of a better term. They were took a very anti-Rizzo slant and didn't tell the whole story of his life going back to Italy. So I decided to write a book that was a biography, not only of this man and what he meant, warts and all, and it's not an apology for Rizzo. There's a lot of stuff in there about his life in politics that the Rizzo family and Rizzo supporters didn't like, but I wanted to put in everything, warts and all. But it goes all the way back to the fact that, members of his family served in Garibaldi's army in Italy, and how they came out of the Mezzogiorno of Italy and then emigrated to the United States, his wife's family. And it's sort of like the story of the Italian-American experience in the United States, particularly in Philadelphia and South Philadelphia, and the story of politics and government and the reform movement and the riots and everything through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s of Frank Rizzo's life. And, the book was made into a play. It was written by Bruce Graham, a very famous playwright who's written a lot of famous plays. He wrote a play, and the play ran in the Suzanne Roberts Theater on South Street on the Avenue of the Arts for 2 years, was sold out for two straight years. I'm proud of the book because it tells the entire story of Frank Rizzo's life and how important he was, and what he accomplished and what he didn't accomplish as mayor of Philadelphia.
Well, hey, Sal, continue, Scott McKay, continuing with that. With what we're going on in the world today, how do you think Frank Rizzo would handle like the injustice and the defunding of police, and how do you think he would handle that today?
Hey, I get that question a lot, and I'm just not going to speculate about that. I think people should read the book. The book is about a long history of the Italian-American experience and Frank Rizzo's life and the politics of Philadelphia. And I don't think it can superimpose anybody's views on anything that would happen now, especially since that man is no longer with us. I don't think it's fair to him. I don't think it's fair to what's happening now. So I'm going to punt on that question.
Okay. All right, so Sal, fast forward now. You're in the politics. How'd you get into the sports aspect of it? Because you're the preeminent journalist at ESPN. You do a great job, and we look forward to your Fridays with Mike Gill and the Sports Bash, and love seeing you on TV. How'd you get into sports?
Right. So there was a guy by the name of Mark Bowden, very famous journalist at the Philadelphia Inquirer. He was actually covering the Eagles. He wrote a very good book, the best book ever written about sports in Philadelphia, called Bringing the Heat. I recommend it to everybody. Mark is an accomplished author, a great journalist, award-winning. And he was covering the Eagles. And he was sent to Somalia, and they were looking for somebody to replace him. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And so Mark Bowden went to Somalia, wrote Black Hawk Down, became very famous and very successful and very rich. And I covered the Eagles for almost 2 years until ESPN came calling. So that one decision really made the career of two people. And I really wanted at that point to change the trajectory of my career. I basically had done everything I wanted to do, covering politics. And this was a great opportunity. The Eagles are the number one story at the number one newspaper. Why wouldn't you want that job? And a lot of things happened literally in my first 2 years covering the team for the Inquirer. Reggie White became a free agent. The Philadelphia Eagles were sold. They hired their first African-American head coach, Ray Rhodes. Then Andy Reid was hired. And I joined ESPN in 1995, and right then, and Andy Reid got hired in '99. They went to the Super Bowl, and the Terrell Owens. There was just so much news, and ESPN couldn't get enough of it. The Eagles became a big, big, big national story, and I was in the right place at the right time.
That's
awesome.
Great. That's all. Hey, Sal, you like I said, you've had many accomplishments with your books and stuff. And you had a Paolantonio report, and you did it on most overrated and underrated people in NFL history. Can we get your most overrated and underrated Eagles player?
I think
question,
my most underrated player from the Eagles that I wrote about was Jeremiah Trotter. I didn't think that Jeremiah Trotter got nearly enough, and I know he lives in South Jersey. He may be listening to this show right now. I don't think he got nearly enough the national recognition that he deserved. I thought he was a great linebacker who did a lot of great things and was on a great team. And the Eagles were nowhere without him, as they found out quickly. My most overrated Eagles player, boy, that would be tough, of all time. Wow. There's a lot of players that just didn't live up to their billing. I don't know. It would have to be Donovan McNabb, maybe, because I think Donovan never really achieved his full potential.
I agree.
Wow, how about that? All right, Sal, real quick. I wanted to get to learn about the man, Sal Paolantonio, but now that we have you on real quick, just give us a short synopsis of what do you think is going to happen? How's it going to shake out? Eagles, Cowboys. Obviously, it's a good rivalry it's a great rivalry for the fans. There's only going to be 7,000 fans in the stands, but how do you see this one shaking out, Sal?
Oh, this will be a really this game will have a very high rating on national TV on Sunday night. You know, the NFC East may be a bad division, but it's a great story, and it's a great story that has it all, right? Sense of urgency, chance at redemption, opportunity to get back on track on national TV. You know, Doug Peterson told the team it doesn't matter if both these teams were 6-0. We're sitting there with 2 wins each, like we are. It's a division rivalry. The Cowboys are trying to, they're trying to get up off the mat. They're going to play hard. We got to take care of business, and we got to take care of each other. And the Cowboys are basically saying the same thing. Ezekiel Elliott said we got to win. No excuses. Doesn't matter how many guys we have out. And Jalen Smith, the captain of their defense, told the team it's a chance to change the narrative of the 2020 team. So I think there's a lot of sense of urgency on both sides. I think you throw out the records. I think you throw out who's playing and who's not playing. I think this is going to be a tough game between these two teams.
11-point spread, Sal.
I know it went. It went from the Eagles 3.5 down, right?
Yeah. That's such a big swing.
I've never seen a 14-point swing. Have you?
No, I don't recall one. That's pretty big. All right, Sal. Listen, we don't have that much time.
I'm very, very skeptical of that 11 points because the Eagles, as a home dog, have a terrible, terrible record under Doug Peterson. You're aware of that, right?
Yes. Yeah. I don't like this 11 points either at all.
Oh,
I don't know where that's coming from.
I mean, how many games have the Eagles won? 2, right? What's the total points they've won by? I believe it's 6. Am I correct about that?
6. So,
yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
6.
So how are you giving away 11 points? I don't get it. In a game like this where the Cowboys know it's over if they don't play. But, I think it's all based on one thing and one thing only, right? Ben DiNucci. That's what it's got to be based on.
Ben DiNucci. I love it.
Right?
All right, Sal. Listen, man, we really appreciate. Hey, Sal, we really appreciate you taking time to spend with us on a Saturday morning prior to the Eagles-Cowboys game to get to know you. Every time we hear you, you're always talking about other people, and I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
This was great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks,
all right.
Sal.
Of course, you can check out your book. You got that great book, this Philly special, The Inside Story, How Philadelphia Eagles won their first Super Bowl championship in bookstores now. Thank you so much, Sal. I really appreciate it.
It was totally my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. There's Sal Paolantonio on the Barb's Harley Davidson Sports Hotline.